Imagine this. When you speak the truth about your darkest chapters, your story becomes the light someone else has been praying for. I'm Jennifer Lee, founder of the Healing and Sharing, host of the I Need Blue podcast, author, and a survivor who turned pain into purpose. God called me to use my story and share my voice to create this special space just for you. To learn more, visit ineedblue.net. I must share a trigger warning. This podcast includes discussions of trauma, violence, and sensitive experiences meant to empower and support. Please prioritize your well-being and remember there is strength in asking for help. A heartfelt thank you to my beautiful friend Melissa Turi for creating the opening melody. To learn more about her incredible journey, visit melissaturimusic.com. Now let's begin today's story. Dharasena wants to share her journey to overcome. She was sexually assaulted while on the job by an authoritative figure. She reported it to her supervisors and was met with retaliation. She ended up getting fired. A few years later, she was riveted by the news of her brother's murder. She tried to deal with the turmoil independently and sought opioids to help numb the pain. She wanted to end her life, and God spoke to her, encouraging her to get help by checking into a hospital. 2 years ago, she was able to get off the mood stabilizers. This year, she celebrates 4 years from her dependency on opioids. God led Dharasena to speak about the importance of forgiveness and how her healing journey didn't begin until she was able to forgive the person who sexually assaulted her and forgive the 2 individuals who killed her brother. Dharasena, your story is impactful. There is strength and courage behind your words. A mutual friend connected us as you were encouraged to share your story, letting others know you are not alone. God has called you to do great things, one of which is to share your journey. Dharasena, welcome to the I Need Blue podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to be here. Thank you.
Of course. You courageously shared your story with me. Today, I'm happy to provide you the opportunity to share many of your messages, including how to let go and let God. Can you share with us what occurred that day?
Sure. I truly appreciate your story, and I'm sorry that happened to you. When I was in my situation, we were actually at a party, and the supervisors were there. Some of my authoritative figures were there, and as well as other employees. Drinking was involved in the situation, and I had a little bit too much to drink to where I was unable to walk. I wasn't coherent at all. One of the other employees actually laid me down on a bed so that I could rest and get me out of the situation at the party. It was probably around 2:00 in the morning that I woke up to a pain in my stomach. And when I woke up, I seen one of my authoritative figures actually on top of me. And I don't know if it was due to fear or maybe the alcohol that I actually blacked out again at that point. I woke up and nobody was there. I pulled my pants up and went to the bathroom. When I stumbled out of the bathroom, I could tell something had happened to me. It just didn't seem right. It seemed a little off. And that was when I realized that I had been raped.
Wow, especially as a woman, I can't imagine that moment when that realization hit you. And I think that it's important to say that it doesn't matter how much you drink or whether you are asleep on a bed or not. It is not okay for someone to come in and violate you like that.
I totally agree. And that was some of the things that I struggled with in my healing process is the blame and the guilt that I put on myself. I blamed myself more than I blamed the perpetrator who did that to me. I put myself at fault in this situation versus realizing that it doesn't matter if you're drunk. It doesn't matter if you're completely naked. In those situations, that doesn't give the right for anybody to take advantage of you at all. And I realize that a lot of women and a lot of men who undergo or have went through rape or sexual assault or harassment, they have a tendency to blame themselves. And it also hinders their healing process because they can forgive the person who did this to them, or they might not even see fault in the person who did this to them. So they also have to learn to forgive themselves in that process.
Yes, forgiveness is a powerful journey, and I can't wait to even dig a little deeper with you into that. I want to ask, the moment that you did become coherent and you saw the perpetrator, you remembered that person.
Yes, ma'am. I actually know exactly who it was. And when I was laying back down on the bed, he was actually sitting on the bed next to me, rubbing my back. And he was like, "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" Because another employee had entered the room and asked why I was crying because they've never seen me hysterical like that, crying out like that. They've always seen me as somebody with joy and somebody who was always laughing or being a comedic relief in times of despair or depression. So when they seen me like that, they knew something was wrong. And it was almost as if he tried to play it off. It actually worked very well because during that time, he actually walked me out. And he specifically said, "Don't say nothing because you're going to get all of us in trouble." So I ended up that next day reporting it to my supervisor, and I was met with extreme retaliation.
It's so hard for a survivor to come forward. And so it always hurts my heart when I see somebody that found the strength to do that and they didn't get the support they needed. They maybe got doubt of, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, or in your case, retaliation. Can you describe the retaliation? Like, was it words that they said that were hurtful, disrespectful, inappropriate? And then what happened after that?
Yes, it was actually words from former peers and employees that said she deserved that or she brought that on herself. I was also met with a write-up. I've got written up for that incident as well. And then I was met with my papers to leave my career. They went ahead and fired me from my career because I wanted to press charges against that specific supervisor.
What charges did they write you up?
They relieved me of my duty for patterns of misconduct.
So they're claiming that this has happened before.
Right. They're saying that I'm basically a troublemaker and that my words can't be trusted.
And did they say that before you were like, listen, I'm going to go after this perpetrator and press charges? Or did that come after?
They advised me to go get a rape kit test done. So I went to the hospital that same day, maybe like 8 hours after the rape had happened. I went to the hospital and I had a rape kit test done. I had the hair strands removed, blood work, all of that done. And I stayed there for a couple days and the test came back conclusive that there was definitely a situation that occurred where it was not consensual. So they could see that there was not a consensual encounter due to the bruises, the scratches and stuff on me.
Right. Did you have a victim advocate?
I did have a victim advocate. She was fantastic. I think the ball got dropped when it got into the manager's hands, the supervisor's hands. I think that's where the ball kind of got dropped, and that's when favoritism came into play.
I think maybe you're being kind when you say the ball got dropped, because it sounds like what I am hearing is that they pretty much wanted to put it under the rug and just make you go away.
Yes, they wanted to erase the situation and act like nothing ever even happened. They don't want to deal with the backlash.
Right. There's a particular image that has to be upheld.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you ready for it to just be pushed under the rug and move on?
Oh, no, I was ready to fight. I was not done. I pushed and pushed and pushed until I literally got relieved. Even after they kicked me out, I still pushed. I started working as a victim advocate. I started going to school for my AA degree. I started going to get my bachelor's degree for social work. So I continuously push because stuff like this cannot be swept under the rug. There are men and women out there who get sexually assaulted on a daily basis. I mean, with multiple people in an hour of a day, and it's like nothing is done and nobody believes the victim. Nobody is there to support the victim. Nobody is there to help the victim. Now, I did personally have a group of people that supported me and still support me till this day regarding that situation.
That's so important to have that support. And because there is somebody else that has been in that situation and understands the details, the results of the rape kit, the fact that was not your fault, no matter what the circumstances were. So good for you to search, find that. And I'm so glad that even today that continues.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. What symptoms of PTSD trauma you were left with after this incident?
Severe night terrors, night sweats, waking up in full panic attacks. I would fight in my sleep, like literally fight as though somebody was on top of me and would wake up and there's nothing there. I would sleep all day and stay up all night because the rape happened in the nighttime. So I felt like the moment that I fell asleep, I'm left in a vulnerable position. I could not be vulnerable at all around anybody. I put on this exterior as if I'm so hard and I'm so tough that nothing can touch me. And it actually pushed a lot of people out of my life because I didn't want to be vulnerable. I was afraid of being hurt again because that was somebody that I was friends with. That was somebody that I worked with. That was somebody that I cared about that did that. So it eventually led me to a belief that I can't trust anybody at all.
Now, considering that person held that almost like family, you cared about them position in your life, did they ever come back and apologize, acknowledge their behavior?
They actually never did acknowledge their behavior, but they were still around people that I was around. So I kind of just forgave without saying I forgave and just smiled in the person's face as if nothing happened.
Within this episode, we also want to pay honor to your brother.
Yes, ma'am.
We talked about how he was murdered. Can you, whatever you're comfortable with, share some detail about that? Like, was it many years ago?
It was on May 11th. It'll be exactly 11 years since my brother was murdered. Whew. The way that my mom walked into my house alone was just traumatic. It was about 3:00 in the morning. So once again, another situation where it's early in the morning. And my alarm went off on my house and she walked in and her exact words were, "He's gone. They killed him. He's gone." And she is just in complete distraught and despair. I didn't know what she was talking about. And I was thinking maybe my father, because he was in and out of jail multiple times. So I didn't even think that it would be my brother. And the moment that she said, "Jeremiah, your brother, your little brother is dead," all the oxygen in my body left. I I fell to the ground.
I can't imagine what that would feel like. Numbness, I guess, disbelief. And then when do you get to the point to then start asking the questions of what happened? How did it happen?
I jumped on that. As if you can't tell, I'm a head first type person. Just dive right in. So once again, another situation where I did not take time to take care of myself, grieve, and deal with the trauma. I immediately dived right into my brother's case. I went, checked the crime scene. I was constantly in the police station when all witnesses were interviewed. I went to the state attorney's office. I got all the crime scene photos, the hospital photos, all the interviews, even the both people involved in his murder. I got those interviews as well. And then I immediately started tearing apart the case. It became an obsession for me to solve my brother's case because I could feel that it was not being done properly. I felt that something was not adding up. And I'm like, something's just not right. So a 3-inch binder full of case files I would go through daily and try to put together this puzzle piece. How did this happen? Why did this happen? How come these two people aren't locked up? Why didn't they get charged? And it ultimately deteriorated me.
Did you get any answers you were looking for?
I actually did not receive any answers. The person that originally turned himself in, he was in there for about 1.5 years, and they ended up releasing him due to there not being a gun. Because there was no gun, the state laws, there's no proof. All they have is witness statements that's going back and forth. And it wasn't until, let's say, he was released probably 1.5 years later. So in 2014, which was about 2 years after my brother's murder, he actually walked into my church.
Wow.
The church that I was going to, he walked into. And I was like, sweet Jesus. Oh, I don't know what it is that you want me to do, but I'm not comfortable right now. Like, you don't expect that. You don't expect the person who murdered your brother to, 1, go to church, but to 2, walk into your church.
Did he know it was your church?
He didn't even know who I was. He had no idea what I looked like. He didn't know who I was. Him and his mom came to church. They just came to church.
So what did you do?
I acted out and walked out, and the pastor ended up stopping service, and the pastor came out and spoke to me, and he said, Dharasena, he was like, you can either be a lion stuck in a cage full of rage and anger, or you can allow God to open that cage and you can be set free by forgiving him. And I prayed on it. I sincerely prayed on it, and we walked back into the church, and pastor said, we're just going to stop service and we're going to do an altar call. So pastor stopped service, mid-service, did an altar call. People walked up, and God was like, go grab his hand and ask him if he wants to walk to the altar with you. My heart, this whole time, my heart is just beating hard, and I'm sobbing in tears. And I grab this man's hand and I say, would you like to give your life to Jesus and walk to the altar? I have to take a breather real quick. I'm getting choked up a little.
Please take your time. I'm overcome with emotion myself. This is amazing.
I ended up walking him to the altar, and I held his hand the entire time, and I'm crying. And everybody goes and there was probably about 30 people at the altar. Everybody goes and sits back down, and I walk him directly over to the pastor. And pastor's like, would you like me to anoint you? He asked the man. And he proceeded with, yes, please. And he looked me in my eyes, we're face to face. And he was like, man, why are you doing this? And I said, because I'm Jeremiah's sister. And I seen his whole body just turn into fear. He didn't know. It almost was like a fear of his life, but also a mixed amount of confusion and emotion and not understanding what's going on. And he proceeded to say, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. This is what truly happened. And I said, I don't need to know what happened. God brought you and me here today for me to release this forgiveness to you so that we both can heal from this event. And Pastor anointed us, and I gave the man that murdered my brother a hug.
Wow, Dharasena. That is so profound. I cannot wait to share your story. And truly, that is forgiveness. Put aside your own emotions and sadness and loss and be able to give a hug to this person. Wow.
The feeling was unremarkable, but there was also the enemy was in my head saying that you just turned your back on your brother. You just turned your back on your brother. And all God kept saying was, well done, my good and faithful servant. But the enemy's voice was so loud because he was so mad that I released that forgiveness. And for a long time, it ate me up. I was like, did I really do that? Did I really turn my back on my brother? And I began destructive patterns. I began using pain pills off the street to try to mute the enemy's voice, to not hear that and to not deal with the pain and to numb the pain. And it was just a flashback of both of those traumas. It's your fault. You turned your back on your brother. It's your fault that you weren't there for him. It's your fault that you got raped. And it was just a cycle, a vicious cycle that just kept spiraling to the point where I wanted to end my life and go be with my brother. And God spoke to me and he said, Dharasena, I need you to turn yourself into the hospital. So I called my mom and she drove me to the hospital, and I spent 4 months in an inpatient facility getting ongoing treatment and prolonged exposure for my brother's murder. And when I left that treatment facility, I promised myself that I would never pick up his case file ever again. And here we are, 4 years later. I have not picked up that case file. And I'm also about to be 4 years sober off of all opiates.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yes. I have a question. I want to pull this all together for you. So we have the rape and you have your brother's murder. Which one occurred first?
The rape occurred first. That was in 2006.
Okay, so you at that point are dealing with your own trauma, and then a matter of years later, now you're dealing with the death of your brother.
Yes, ma'am.
What a strong woman. I appreciate your courage. I love that you lifted it up to God. And one of the words they've been using at church a lot is surrender.
Yes, ma'am.
And you surrender to God. And now where you are today is a testament. So let me ask you this, as you are going through that journey of figuring out how to help others, what were you doing to help yourself?
Realistically, I wasn't doing anything to help myself when I first started the journey to help others. And I think that's kind of where I slipped on my end, because I kind of closed the bottle and was like, I'm okay. There's nothing wrong. I'm okay. I can do this. Now it's my turn to go help other people. I never actually dealt with the trauma and the identity struggles after that situation. It wasn't until, I would say, 15 years that I actually decided to get exposure therapy done to help me with the situation that had happened that night.
Can you explain that process, the exposure therapy?
So there's multiple different types of exposure therapy, and the way that I can explain prolonged exposure is that's the one that I decided to take. You have to be a person who likes to dive in head first. So you just want to get it done, You don't want to beat around the bush. You don't want to pour some powdered sugar over it and sweeten it up. You want to go straight in for the details, the nitty gritty, and do what you have to do to get healed. And prolonged exposure involves those nitty gritty details. It involved me having to record the story in full detail in present time as if it were happening again. I had to record smells that I smelled. I had to speak about the things that I seen, the pain that I felt in my stomach. So it was almost as if you were completely reliving the situation. And I had to re-record it every single week. And every week I had to re-listen to it over and over again. And then I had to put myself in positions that would raise my anxiety until my anxiety dropped, which they call those in vivos. So places where I didn't feel safe, where there's a bunch of people, like Walmart. I have to go stand in line with nothing in my hands and just sit there until my anxiety came down, knowing that there was somebody right behind me.
Wow, that's interesting. I had not heard of that before, but I can definitely see where you say you have to just be like a bulldozer and just want to bulldoze through the whole situation, the trauma, and come out on the other side. Good for you. You have had positive results. And how long did that process take?
That was probably about 16 weeks. And I will say I am extremely grateful that I did that because now I can go into public places alone. I can go on walks in theme parks or boardwalks or nature trails alone and not feel like somebody's going to attack me or somebody's going to come and attack me from my backside. Am I still a little hypervigilant? Yeah, a little. It's still something that I'm working on, but I can be inside big places and be alone knowing that ultimately God is the one that's protecting me. There's nothing that I need to do.
Oh, that's wonderful. I have found in my own situation that it was much easier to be the helper than it was to actually take a step back, look in the mirror, and figure out how to deal with my own trauma. So I completely get that, almost diving in head first of how can I help people rather than thinking about how to help myself. So that is probably rather normal, but I'm glad you got to the point where you recognized I need some help.
Yes, ma'am.
So you talked about you forgave. Shall we dig into the forgiveness part of your story, and let go and let God?
Yes, we absolutely can. That day I did not forgive him when I was around that person, but once I went through exposure therapy and I realized the only way that I can truly begin my journey to overcome is to forgive, because in 2 Corinthians 2:10, it says, when I forgive, he forgives. God can forgive. And he does it in the authority of Christ for our benefit. Also, if I don't forgive him, I'm not forgiven for my sins. And there's no reason for me to sit and hold on to that anger because it was keeping me inbound in my house. I didn't want to go anywhere. I wanted to just stay somewhere where I felt safe.
So for you, when you finally got to that point of forgiveness, like the anger and in those adverse emotions kind of dissipated?
Yes, they actually did. I was able to start sleeping better. I was able to go out and be in public places. I was able to trust other people because I lost trust even for, I hate to say it, but even for my own family. I was like, will they really protect me if something like this happens? Even though realistically, I know they would, but that's just something that came with the trauma. So I was finally able to trust being in cars with them, going out in public, going to movie theaters by myself, being in a restaurant by myself, and not sitting with my back against the wall to view all exits. I was able to now sit with my back against the exit knowing that God's got my back.
That is great. Because somebody who also, I had issues with people speaking behind me because the robber was behind me when he said, "Give me all your money." And so I startle very easily.
Yep.
Like if we go for a walk and somebody honks a horn or whatever, even if they're riding their bike and they're like on the left, I mean, I will jump. It is like the worst feeling. It's like you go through anger and then fear, and then you're like, you reason yourself like, okay, you're safe. It's okay. But I understand that anxiety. I fortunately did not have it to the point where it was debilitating like it had been for you, to where you couldn't leave your home. And fear is debilitating.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and I think if there's a message you and I both know from living it, is that the opposite of fear is faith. When you release that fear and turn towards faith, it really changed your life.
It absolutely did. Fear can hold you back in a way that you never even think possible. But the moment that you release it and give it to God is the moment that you pick up that faith, because faith makes us sure the things we hope for and gives us proof of the things that we don't see. And it's mentioned so many times. I think it's like 365 times in the Bible that it says, fear not. And that's because God knew that we would fear something every single day. And he doesn't want us to fear. He doesn't want us to be dismayed, because he is our God and he is with us wherever we go. He wants us to walk in faith. He wants us to walk in victory. He wants us to know that he has already won this challenge and this war.
I want to ask you this question because my relationship in God in the past is I would start out by, yes, God, it's me. I want something. I need something. And that's why I'm talking to you today. But as a survivor of a violent crime, like violence has not left our world, right? It's not
No.
gone away. So how are you maintaining consistently your strong faith?
The way I look at it is God doesn't cause pain, but he also does not waste pain. So the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. But God came to give life and life more abundantly. So when we keep our eyes focused on him and not the tactics of the enemy, then we won't be disabled by fear at all. And with all the traumatic events that have happened in my life, I've had people ask me, how can you trust this world? It's not that I trust the world. It's I trust God who created this world. I trust him and his protection over this world.
I couldn't have said that any better. That's something that I think I need to write down and look at every day, because it's so easy to forget. Do you do something on a daily basis to kind of keep God top of mind?
I actually do. I wake up early in the morning to seek him and kind of hear his word, see what it is that Holy Spirit wants me to do throughout the day, if he has any assignments or anybody he needs me to pray over. I also attend church. We have cliques, not click as in CLIQUE, but clicks as in like a seatbelt clicks. So I attend that on Wednesday and Thursday. I also attend church on Sundays, and then I mentor students at our church as well.
Awesome. I love that. And I think that I need to start my day with that conversation with God as well. So thank you for sharing that. And you inspire me.
Oh, thank you. I'm grateful that I can be of any kind of assistance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are. Now, really wanted to talk about, where you are today. I love that you're 4 years sober. And what are you doing in your community?
Right now, one of the biggest things that I'm doing that I never thought that I would see myself doing is mentoring kids. It is such a rewarding opportunity to be able to take the things that I have gone through in my life and utilize my journey to overcome to help light the pathway of healing for other people, and to kind of guide these students to stay on solid ground so that they may not end up in situations like this.
What do you find is the biggest struggle for our youth today?
I would say the biggest struggle would be social media. I would say social media has tainted a lot of our youth's mindset on their identity, which is causing them to have thoughts of suicide or suicidal ideation or actually acting it out.
When social media years ago started to become popular, I said that is going to be the death of society. The influence that it has, the fact that we're all glued to our phones, the fact that you see a 2-year-old in a stroller, with a phone watching cartoons, it's like kind of crazy. I'm glad I didn't have social media when I was raising my boys. I mean, I remember my mom saying, okay, don't let them in front of the TV watching Barney for too long.
Yep. I'm glad we didn't have it either. We had dial up, and our mom told us either we're inside or we're outside. We played outside. We played pine cone war and hide and seek. These kids are now just they're addicted. It's become an addiction to our youth, and it's hindering them
Absolutely. And it's an addiction for adults
as well.
Which is why it's allowed for the kids, because if the parent had to put the cell phone down, then that means they would have to, entertain the kids. The phone has become the babysitter, has become the entertainment. Let me ask you this, because this is really important for parents listening, for grandparents, for teachers, anybody that is in a position to influence our youth. What are you recommending they do to help combat the social media, the poison that social media is putting into our youth?
I would highly recommend that they spend as much time with their children, or if you're a mentor, with your youth as possible. And when I mean time, I don't mean time inside watching TV or time with any kind of technology. Take these children outside. Show them the things of this world. Show them what God put here on this earth, because there's more to this life than technology. There's more to... God has a purpose for every last single one of these children, and his plan for them is for them to prosper and succeed and to have a hope and a future. But we have to be the light that guides them to that hope and future. We can't allow them to sit stagnant.
Right. When kids are bored, sometimes that's when bad decisions are made. There's so many things that influence that. But the one thing that we can control, I think, is what you just said, how we spend our time with our kids when we are with our kids.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything else you want to add today so that I don't miss anything that's really important to you?
Your healing journey does not begin until you learn to forgive not just the person who trespassed against you, but forgive yourself for the negative words that you were speaking over yourself and the negative thoughts that you have thought about yourself due to the traumatic experience that you have undergone.
Perfect. And you know what? Sometimes forgiveness is having to remind yourself of that every minute, every hour, every day, and then it becomes every week and then every month as you start to engrave it in your head and become stronger in your relationship with God.
Yes, ma'am. It's definitely not a one-time thing. It takes a lot of time, and the more you do it, the more you realize, oh, okay, I forgive him. I'm not upset. But in forgiveness, you also have to pray for that person. You have to pray a blessing over them. You have to pray that they draw nearer to God. That's what kind of helped me a little bit more excel in the forgiveness period, because I wasn't just saying, I forgive them, but I was saying, Lord, bless them, Father God. Break the generational curses off of them, Father God. Let their families prosper. Let them be successful, Father God. And it might seem counterproductive because you feel that anger and that hatred, but you're also fighting the enemy when you do that.
Absolutely. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm so glad we connected and were able to work it all out.
Thank you so much. I was excited to be on here. I'm truly honored to be on your show.
Absolutely. I am honored to have you on here as well. Dharasena, thank you so much for being my special guest on the I Made Blue podcast.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And you have a beautiful smile. We can see each other as we record, even though I don't record video, but you have a beautiful smile. So please keep sharing your smile with the world.
Oh, thank you. I hear that often, and I'm grateful that I can now share it with the world.
I am too. I am too. All right. Thank you for listening today. This is Jen Lee with the I Need Blue podcast. You can find all of my episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, most podcast listening platforms, as well as my website, www.ineedblue.net. And remember, you are stronger than you think. Have a good day.